Hello, my name is Morgan Petruski, and I currently student teach at Goodrich Middle School. So I did my capstone presentation today on creating a structured learning environment in the classroom. So with that, I focus mainly on the relationship side of things. So my competency statement was, I am competent in building positive relationships with students to create a productive, a trustworthy, and a confident learning environment. So like I said, I did my student teaching placement at Goodrich Middle School, which is a Title I school here in Lincoln in the Belmont area. The big thing about that school is it's got a lot of diversity and a lot of students that come from rough areas. So with that, relationships was a huge part of that, and trying to get them connected with me as a person before you could even teach them. So my guiding questions today, I put, how have I successfully learned to build positive relationships with students? With that, I'm going to talk about that kind of in my first artifact that I have. And how have my positive relationships with students changed their performance and confidence in the classroom? So I'm going to kind of talk about that one in my second artifact. And then how did those relationships show effects in my classroom? And that's really the big thing that we're looking for here. And that's kind of shown not only through my synthesis, my reflection, but also through my third artifact, which is actually my supervisor coming in and viewing me in the classroom. So jumping right into it with artifact 1, as you can see, I kind of have them laid out on the table here, but just simply those thank you letters that you get from students afterwards. That's kind of the big reason why we're teachers, is that feeling afterwards of, wow, my students did actually like me, even though they didn't act like they liked me all the time. They did. And none of these were prompted letters. In all reality, these were all just kind of things that they gave me. I did get some feedback in terms of making more so of a sheet for them to fill out and getting that negative feedback as well, because to become a better teacher, we need to learn from our students on what they thought we did well and what they thought they would have rather had from us throughout. So, I mean, you're more than welcome to pick any of these up and look through them. This is my personal favorite. My kindergarten classroom made a whole booklet and they all wrote in it, and it almost brought me to tears when I read it because it was just so sweet and nice. And yeah, basically that's just all the letters. And then my artifact 2, so this is the one I could talk about basically all day. So I had a student in my current place where I was at for student teaching. His name was Brock. He was a big guy, about my height, 6th grader, and I'm 6'4", so a 6th grader that's 6'4" and about 220 pounds of muscle. He was a big man. And as you can imagine, he knew he was a big man, and he wanted to be a bigger man than the teacher was. And really rebellious kid. I came in, he had a failing grade in the classroom, and the biggest thing that I thought is I need to get that relationship with him first. And he wouldn't respond to me, wouldn't respond to me. And then one day he saw this Packers hat right here on my desk. And he goes, oh wow, you like the Green Bay Packers, cool, and like storms away. And I'm like, oh, I got him. And my CT looks at me and he goes, oh, you got him. He's roped in now. So the next day I go out and I offer to play a full-time quarterback on their team at recess. And he starts telling me about how he's gonna play professional football, blah, blah, blah. And he starts like opening up, not wanting to open up to me. And instantly there, we kind of had that connection of student and teacher, which I feel like really changed him as a student. I started to see him want to work for me instead of me making him work, which is what you want. Like, you can give a glass of water to somebody, but you cannot force them to drink it. They have to want to drink it from you. And that's really what knowledge is. You're giving the students the knowledge, and they need to take it from you. You can't force feed knowledge to a student. So we got this great relationship, and moral of the story is, by the end, this kid was doing his tests. He couldn't wait for test day to prove how smart he was. He started to answer questions. He didn't want to answer questions, but I think like his soul made him raise his hand, so he answered the questions. Or I would just call on him, honestly. He would ask questions, which was great. He would come in and get help before or after school. He would want to get that feedback from me. And his grade was the biggest thing. His grade went up to a 17%, it went up 17%. It didn't go to a 17%. So like, he went from an F when I got there to he was a C+ student when I left. And a lot of his other grades in the school weren't as good, but mine was, because I feel like I got that relationship with him. Now, how does this affect my classroom? So this is the biggest thing that really hits home for me, is somebody else saw that connection as well. So my supervisor came in. She's been in my classroom 3 times this whole semester. And she always wrote great things, but she wrote something in here that really was big to me. It says students were really engaged, which is what we want as teachers, 100% engagement. And students feel safe to ask questions and answer questions. So that safe environment. We want students to be safe in our classroom. And it looks like, to me, she thinks that I successfully created this safe environment. Because in a Title I school, kids at home, it's not always safe, and they don't feel safe. And they need to feel safe in our classroom as teachers. And that's one of our biggest jobs as teachers. I'd say that's a top 3 job right there, is to make our students feel safe. And then she says, it's such a positive environment for learning. So to know that she thought that I was being a positive person and the students felt like they could have a positive behavior in my classroom was amazing. Then at the end she writes, I enjoy coming into an upbeat, positive environment. So I am a very upbeat teacher. I'm around, as you can tell, I talk with my hands. But she also saw that, which was great to see a third-person point of view, a really biased point of view come into my classroom and see that. My synthesis to kind of tie these all in, there is going to be limitations in this. You can't hit every student on a super deep personal level. It might just be how was your weekend as they're walking in, having a secret handshake with the student, giving them those fist pumps when they walk in. Really just trying to not show favoritism towards students is the biggest limitation that I've seen so far. Some students feel down because they think you're spending more time with a different student, and it's kind of that whole like, who's the favorite son or daughter in the family type of thing. And you really don't want that, because you don't want those students to feel like an outcast in your classroom. And then involving all students, that kind of ties in with that, as well as finding that balance between curriculum and relationships. You don't want the relationships to overcome how important the curriculum is in your classroom. You want to use them to propel towards getting that structured learning environment, getting that trustworthy learning environment for students, and wanting them to learn from you, not you making them learn. And that's how you're going to get that good responses, good behaviors, that desired behaviors from students, which is what we all want in our classrooms. And then the positives, it affects participation. I showed that through my last 2 artifacts. It clearly affected Brock's participation in my classroom, and it clearly affected what she saw from my whole class when she came in and observed my classroom. She saw hands getting raised. She saw 100% engagement in my class. She saw all the kids wanting to learn. And then really the biggest thing was just share who you are as a teacher. So this leads me into my reflection. It's throw teaching out the window. Not teaching, but teaching the curriculum out the window, essentially. It's huge to have those relationships. And you need to find what's unique to you to build those relationships. It's hard. You can't look at another teacher and go, oh, that's what they're doing, that's how I'm going to build my relationships, because you're not them. Students are going to see through you being a fake person. They want to see who you are. Be a real person. I'm upbeat, energetic, and I want to go play with them at recess. So that's who I am. That might not be you. You might want to enjoy your lunch or something like that. So it's really just finding your identity in the first few years of teaching, and that's what I plan to do, because I still don't really know who I am as a teacher. I need to find my identity. So it's really just being real with the students, get on a personal level with the students. At the same time, don't get on too personal level with the students, but be their friend in a professional way. And they will want to learn from you. It will come with time. It took me a good half a semester before my students did with me, but that was the biggest thing that I learned, is get on a personal level with that student and show love for your job. If you want to be there, they're going to want to be there. If you show that you don't want to be there, well, they absorb your personality in the classroom, and it's just how it is with students. I'm energetic and upbeat, so my class is energetic and upbeat. And then my goals for the future, I plan to be a full-time sub at Goodrich Middle School. My first few years of teaching, my biggest goal is to be close with my peers and get feedback from them. So those students that I can't quite figure out, they might have them figured out. They probably do have them figured out, and they have a lot more ways to know how to deal with that student's misbehaviors in the classroom than I do, and I can collect those from them. That's the biggest thing, is just working closely with my staff, working together as a staff, and learning how to help each student individually. And then is there any questions that we may have at this time or that you would like to ask me?